We have a total cocktail for keeping people sick.
A huge industry depends on you being kept alive, but not too well.
They're not given the right to have this treatment.
Governments only exist to protect the people.
I think it is the duty of every citizen to speak up.
Aspartame is a deadly neurotoxin.
Mercury, which is the most toxic substance known to man, after arsenic and lead. How do root canals affect our health?
So soy's got a very good image, but the evidence supporting it is inadequate.
Products that the additives are added to have increased these days.
You do not need gluten in your diet.
You ask me what's bad about fluoride, I'd say what's good about fluoride.
Fluoridation medicates you against your consent.
They're not necessarily presenting us the truth.
The fact that, you know, the generation following us may be the first generation where they have a lower life expectancy than, you know, in human history compared to the previous generation.
And in an ironic way, we have half the world dying of undernutrition and the other half dying of overnutrition.
60% of adults are overweight and obese. In Australia, about 1 in 4 kids are overweight and obese.
Well, if we link obesity and diabetes together, and we now call it diabesity, this is the biggest epidemic in human history.
The soy will prevent breast cancer, whether soy will prevent any cancer. I think there isn't enough evidence.
The effects of the soybean on thyroid function have been well known for more than 50 years.
For an infant who was being fed soy formula 5 times a day was getting the biological equivalent of about 5 contraceptive pills a day.
That mercury comes out of the fillings and gives incurable diseases. Root canals have toxins that come out and give people incurable diseases that can be cured. When mercury is known in any of the literature to be the most toxic natural element on the planet, they say it's of no health significance. How do they say that? Money.
Why would we want to keep people sick? It's very simple, I believe. Dead people and healthy people don't buy drugs. Only sick people buy drugs.
The human carcass is unique on this planet. It's the only one that has a commercial value only when it's diseased, has no value when it's healthy. You might think that's cynical, but it's a fact.
There's far too much money to be made in junk food at the moment.
But we think legislation, particularly things like restricting junk food advertising to children.
That if you get a bad start in life, that's going to put you on a trajectory for the rest of your life that's going to be hard to get off.
Children have rights not to be exposed to inappropriate advertising, and they are. And this is something that should stop.
Good quality nutritious food is expensive because it's very cheap to produce high calorie, high sugar, high fat food.
If you look at it strictly, it's cheaper to be obese.
The Tim Tam biscuit's interesting that in a chocolate biscuit you have to add 5 colours. For some people, even small doses of additives can cause problems.
Those who put their children onto a diet that removes these additives, also finding an improvement in their overall well-being themselves.
These additives are in foods that children and adults eat every day.
The fact that they are permitted in our food supply is one of the great scandals of the 20th century. Aspartame is incredibly addictive.
So if we've got people drinking lots of diet drinks, plus they're having diet yogurts, plus they're having diet this, that and the other, they could potentially be having a very large intake of some of these artificial sweeteners. And to be honest, the research isn't there to back up the safety in the long term.
76 to 86% of all complaints to the TGA and the FDA are about aspartame.
All sorts of things that gluten is used for now that it used not to be. So our gluten intake is huge compared to 100 years ago. There are more and more people getting sick from eating gluten.
The commercial markets are fueling the obesity epidemic.
The requirements of a supermarket, for instance, which are how do we get the product to them as cheaply as possible. And so we end up damaging the integrity of the food.
What our parents had, what the parents before them had is the way to go. Unprocessed, good quality food.
Why are we not given the freedom to do what we want to do as long as we're given an intelligent choice?
This is the sort of thing we're working against, and it's called money, It is called politics. It is not called health.
And when the laws go beyond that and actually start to work to the detriment of the consumer, they have to be questioned.
TGA raided Pan Pharmaceuticals and permanently closed it.
This is an agency that has enormous powers and can apply them seemingly at will.
I found one thing about the truth. You speak the truth, and it puts you in the crosshairs. I'm so glad to be talking to you because you have the abilities to take this where I'm speaking to a handful of people. You can show a lot of people and generate awareness. It isn't that hope is gone, it's that hope is covered up. If it is released, people understand what's going on, we can have a much healthier and happier population.
This is criminal neglect, this economic irrationalism where governments have themselves re-elected because they've stolen money from the people and funded their own re-election. This has to be brought to a stop.